Hello everyone, and welcome back to Real Thing. Today our discussion will be based on an unfinished manuscript by James Baldwin named Remember This House. This adaptation of an original work renamed I Am Not Your Negro gives us a look into Baldwin's point of view on race relations in the US, while simultaneously contrasting his own with the ideologies of his close friends, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers, whom were all murdered for the strength of their voices and character in defying the injustices black Americans face. From Oscar Award nominated filmmaker Raoul Peck, this relatively small budget film, at a cost of $1 million, relies heavily on archival footage. A technique that uses clips of old footage to piece together the ideas found in Baldwin's original 30 pages into a montage combined with interviews and voiceover narration, which together give the film depth. I cannot speak to the fidelity of this historical documentary. That is to say, the film's accuracy in comparison to the unfinished book's direction and message, because I have unfortunately not read it. In fact, due to legal disputes, this particular manuscript was never released and so not readily available online. The film's opening credits roll over a screen which has been divided into a half-black, half-white format, the white section always being the top half of the screen. In a brief moment of transition, as the names of the credits change, the image we see is of a completely black screen. A thin solid white line running through its center, dividing the black screen's top half from its bottom half. We'll touch on this again later. The very first words we hear Baldwin speak are during a late night talk show interview in which the host asks Baldwin in a roundabout way to acknowledge the progress Negroes have made by pointing to their roles in politics, sports, and television, and then asks if their plight seems as hopeless as it once had. Baldwin answers, as long as we continue to use this peculiar language, it's the country itself that should worry, leaving the host with what seemed to be a genuine look of confusion. And in that small caveat, that seeming miscommunication, I feel, is where Baldwin's particular stance, which differed from his aforementioned counterparts to some degree, lived. Raoul Peck, the film's director, did, in my inexperienced opinion, a fantastic job at using juxtaposition in creating a visual experience of Baldwin's not so black, not so white views. For example, historically, photos of civil rights uprisings and the violence which ensued, for effect, and in most instances rightfully so, were images of white police officers using force on black civilian protesters. But in the sequence of still photos following the interview scene, Peck made sure to include several photos of armed black officers arresting black protesters, including a photo of an activist whom was neither black or white, or quite possibly both black and white, being escorted in handcuffs by two officers, one on each side, one black and one white, while Damn Right I've Got the Blues by Buddy Guy plays in the background, making the call for unification, for real unification, very apparent. The film relied almost solely on media of some sort, from old footage of Baldwin to classic blaxploitation films used to drive home the documentary's point. In a letter to his editor or publisher, Baldwin writes, "My dear Jay, I confess to you that I am writing this proposal in a somewhat divided frame of mind. I propose to you that these words and the words that followed, the summer has just begun, and I feel it is almost over. I am about to undertake the journey. Were the words of a man at a crossroads, with the weight of a country, not just the people, on his shoulders, and a truth in his heart. Baldwin's unique life experience, especially outside of the U.S., lent to him a perspective broader than that of his colleagues, through no fault of their own. One which maybe only distance can impart. Much like the thin white line dividing the solid black screen I made reference to earlier, he realized the white barrier to equality and unity isn't an impossible one to overcome. In fact, the illusion of power, as with most illusions, is diasporous from a distance. Peck's use of film references point to one of the projections, in a very literal sense, in America's arsenal of roadblocks to progression: media. An example akin to the still images we spoke of earlier is the use of the film Uncle Tom's Cabin, depicting again black men doing a white man's bidding under the threat of violence, while yet another black man fails to assert his will due to fear of retribution, intentionally imparting a sense of hopelessness in an entire people. Through these images, Peck spoke for Baldwin, and while Baldwin made it clear in his own words that he did not hate white people, his message was clear. As a people seeking fairness and justice through strength, which is what our white counterparts have showed us matters, we as a people are only as strong as our weakest link. Thank you.